Welcome back to the Battle of the Hockey Pool Guides. I've kept you waiting for long enough. Let's find out which guide is the winner of the 2019-20 battle. Here is a quick reminder of the contestants. The Hockey News Ultimate Fantasy Pool Guide, Scott Cullen's Fantasy Hockey Projections, Hockey the Magazine Pooler's Guide, NHL.com's Fantasy Point Projections, the Sports Forecaster NHL Preview and Fantasy Guide, Dobber Hockey's annual guide and draft list, Steve Laidlaw's fantasy hockey rankings, and an aggregation of all of them. As you recall from the past video, these were the results from the 40,320 unique draft scenarios. 8th place goes to Team C. Team C is the Hockey News Ultimate Fantasy Guide. At best, they were victorious in 88 short draft scenarios, and at worst, they came in dead last in 64% of all scenarios. The one thing going against them is that they are a print magazine, which is published and distributed in early August. They are counting that you will follow all the hockey news from the time you pick up their magazine till your draft day, making all the necessary adjustments to their list. Next up, 7th place, and it goes to Guide B. Guide B is Dobber Hockey's annual guide and draft list. This guide is also published in August, but since it is digital, it is updated frequently up until the start of the season. Honestly, I was expecting every guide to at least hold their own by winning around 12.5% of all scenarios. But as you can see, Dobber fell short of that. We now get to see who came in 6th place. Guide G is Scott Cullen's Fantasy Hockey Projections. They earned 1% of all victories, but most of those were in the very short and mid-range drafts. They come dead last in 15% of all these scenarios. They're usually published in September, and they might have a few major tweaks before the start of the season. That brings us to 5th place, and it belongs to Team D, which is the Sports Forecaster. They were strongest in the short to mid-range drafts and earned 2% of all victories while only ending up in last place 3% of the time. Like the Hockey News, they are published in August and rely on you to follow all the happenings in the NHL and make modifications to their list as necessary. The next guide falls one spot short of the top 3. Team E claims 4th place and is Hockey the Magazine Pooler's Guide. It beat out all the other physically printed magazines, even though they too were distributed in August. A slight touch under holding their own by earning 10% of all victories, which were evenly distributed mostly across all draft lengths. One other distinction that assisted them into 4th was that they were dead last in less than 0.5% of all scenario outcomes. We now enter the top 3. Earning 3rd place is Guide H. They are Steve Laidlaw's Fantasy Hockey Rankings. Steve's list had a horrible start, but they pulled out of dead last from all the short drafts and climbed to a winning stranglehold in the long drafts. If they were to improve upon their early round projections, they could become a dominant player. Only 2 remain, and Team A takes 2nd place. They are the aggregation of all the guides, with additional factors like last year and the previous 3-year rankings. The aggregation seemed to have taken the steam out of all the other guides in the medium to long length drafts, but they didn't do as well when things started to go very deep. It may not have been a fair fight to include them, but at the time I had no other list of projections, and there are lists out there that perform some type of aggregation, so I felt their inclusion was reasonable. Which means the winner, Team F, is the NHL's own Fantasy Point Projections. Immediately, you might wonder how a list of 217 players outperformed all the other guides, but they did, and did so by dominating the short to mid-length drafts. Their success continued into the mid to long-range drafts, but they clearly were losing their earlier advantage. Now, one thing that I must admit is that the NHL's predictions were emerging of two of their own lists, one of forwards only and one of defensemen only. I kept the ranking order of the forwards intact and only inserted the defensemen behind the forwards at the same point prediction levels. They earned a crushing 35% of all the victories that were possible, and they also came in last the least amount of times from all the guides, which was 145 times. I won't end it there though. Sure, the head-to-head results are recorded and no one can argue the end result, but that doesn't mean that my testing didn't have any limitations. The largest factor was the number of guides. I only had 7. There are more than that out there for people to choose and use. I've already started to compile additional information. So while the victory has been granted to NHL.com's fantasy point projections for now, I reserve the right to redo the head-to-head matchups. I made mention of the aggregation earlier, and I still think that it was legitimate to include it. But the next time I would favor using another guide or even another external aggregation rather than my own. In this case, I only used it because I didn't have an 8th guide at the time. I believe that all the lists were the latest versions as of October 2nd, 2019, which was the start date of the season. Of course, not all of our drafts are held at that time, but that is the cutoff for this calculation. And the last thing I could think of at this moment is that I removed any players that were retired or signed to other leagues from all the lists. There was some debate on whether or not to exclude Dustin Byfuglien and Justin Williams, but I decided to keep them as draft eligible. At the time, it wasn't clear how long they would be out for, but it seemed that they were in control of when they would return. It turned out that it wasn't necessarily the case for Byfuglien. So what is next? Well, I'm going to keep on doing these videos, and I've already started to compile even more lists of projections from all previously played seasons. What I'm focused on right now is the 2017-18 season because I have 15 lists and I'm counting on getting some more, so stay tuned for that. Let me know if you have any guides that you want me to include. And I will also create other videos that describe and detail my evaluation methodology aside from the head-to-head battles. Until then, please continue to be safe and healthy.